Hello film fans and welcome to this episode of the Shilockian. Now you catch me in a very good mood today because today marks the return of Prehistoric Planet, one of my favourite documentary series from last year and probably my favourite dinosaur documentary full stop. I particularly enjoyed Prehistoric Planet Season 1, or Prehistoric Planet 1 as I suppose it now technically is. Um, Mainly because it felt very much like a documentary that just happened to be about dinosaurs, not a dinosaur documentary per se. I know that sounds a little bit odd, but what I mean by that is it really followed very similar kind of format and even kind of a visual style as current BBC documentaries do. It just happened to be about dinosaurs. So it really did feel like they'd put a camera team in the past, even down to really simple stuff like shot composition. Now, they have made a few changes in their format. The one I like best, and really the only major change, is the fact that they now have, you know how in BBC documentaries they often have at the end the kind of the making of segment. And I jokingly said in my overall series review of Prehistoric Planet how it would be great, wouldn't it, if they'd made up a fake one for Prehistoric Planet. How for example, they'd use some of the developers and the designers of the various dinosaur models, and mocked them up as if they were actually back in the past. And you could have one of those wonderful scenes that you often see in BBC documentaries where they're in a tent somewhere waiting for snow leopards, and you see the poor producer. They're normally an assistant producer actually, been sent out there by the main director, and they're sitting there shivering, going, "Oh yes, we're very excited to see some penguins. Yeah, we just hope the weather improves. Isn't that right, Gary?" And they go then to Gary, who's some, dour northern cameraman, who says, "Oh yes, we're very excited to see some penguins if there's ever stops snowing out there. Mind you, this reminds me a bit of Grimsby." And the producer's like, "Yes, well, thank you very much, Gary." And you think that, probably off camera, they're probably just fed up to the back teeth of each other, and they're really trying to keep it together for this mini segment they've got to do. In fact, I've often wondered whether those mini segments are created more to give the camera team something to do when they're waiting around, rather than for any kind of, like actual, viewing sort of drawing power. I've often I don't skip them all the time, but sometimes I sort of go, "Oh, is it something I'm interested in?" Or if it's not, I'm kind of, less enthusiastic. I'd prefer probably, 10 minutes more of the documentary. But what they do with this one, which I really, really love, is that instead of obviously pretending that they're in the past, which was a bit of a silly idea, and I don't genuinely think that that's they were ever going to do that. I actually said it more as a joke in my other review than anything else. What they do instead is they actually show you how they came to that conclusion that they've shown you, which I really, really enjoy. It's kind of a similar kind of format decision as they did in Planet Dinosaur, which when they kind of had that kind of stop-start kind of formula where they'll show you something, then show you the fossil evidence behind it, then move on, show you something else to show you the fossil evidence. This is more kind of smoother in the sense that you don't have to sit through kind of the stop, start, stop, start, stop, start. You just get to the end and they show you something interesting as to how they came to that decision. Other than that, it's actually quite similar to Planet Dinosaur in the way it kind of shows you the fossil record and how it's all laid out. I like this particular segment was on Hapsygopteryx and how they came to the scene they show you at the beginning where Hapsygopteryx hunts standing up. Like walking along on its wings. They don't really walk along their wings, but you know how pterosaurs kind of walk along the ground. They actually show you them hunting like standing up rather than flying, which is interesting. That scene is probably my favourite in the entire episode, or is one of them. It shows the Haptogopteryx hunting these hadrosaurs on this little island somewhere, and you see this incredible this shot as the Haptogopteryx come almost over the horizon with the sun behind them, and they're massive. I looked up how big they were because I was quite intrigued. And Haptogopteryx are apparently the size of a giraffe, which is pretty incredible, isn't it? I mean, they would be big enough to eat people had they ever met one, which is quite chilling when you think about it. And something I really, really, really enjoyed. And the scene where they're hunting these little hadrosaurs that are hiding in these like massive like vegetation, and then you see them get closer and closer and closer, and then one of them runs and they all run, and then one of them gets grabbed and devoured by this Haptigopteryx is brilliant. I have to say the only thing I found disappointing was that the Hapsigopteryx name. Those of you who have seen any of my previous dinosaur reviews will know that I'm a real big sucker for weird dinosaur names. And I was really disappointed to find that Hapsigopteryx, which sounds brilliant, doesn't it? Means something like like wing bone that was discovered in. I went, what is it actually? Right, you ready for this? Hapsigopteryx actually means Hatig basin wing, which, I mean, is very literal because it's a wing bone found in the Hatig basin in Transylvania, funnily enough. But it's a bit boring, isn't it? You think, couldn't the paleontologists who came up with that have thought of something more exciting? It gives you an impression of somebody, doesn't it? You found a massive wing bone which points to a pterosaur the size of a giraffe, and you think, right, what am I going to call this one? Oh, I think hating wing bone will be a great idea. Oh, I have to say, Claude, I agree with you. That does sound of a very, very literal and interesting name we can think of for this humongous pterosaur that walked around on its hind legs, well, not hind legs, but on its wing bones, and ate like quite large dinosaurs for breakfast. Yes, I agree. I sort of wonder how someone could come to that conclusion, but there you go. The other scene I really liked was the bit with the really difficult to say this dinosaur's name, the Imperator, which has a much better name because it actually means like, let's have a look. Its name actually means powerful warrior, which is a much, 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 much better name. And considering that they don't actually have much fossil evidence for it, and until recently they didn't have a name at all, it is a, a much better naming decision from my very childish perspective. The only thing I dislike about the way they actually show it in this documentary, and this is also very childish, is that I found some pictures online that made it look like this giant carnivorous penguin, which is a much better description. I mean, it's probably not as accurate, and yeah, it was probably a good thing Prehistoric Planet didn't show it looking like that, but wouldn't it have been fantastic? I would love to see a giant, hungry carnivorous penguin running around through the snow and ice. The scene where you actually see the Imperator's hunting is lovely. It's sort of similar to the bit with the Nanooksaurus in the first series of Prehistoric Planet. Um, except that they're not hunting such a big dinosaur, they're hunting like a much smaller one. And there's this great scene where they chase it out onto a frozen lake, and there's this lovely shot. It's probably my favourite shot in the episode, along with the one of the Hapsigopteryx against the sun, where you see it running towards the camera, really low at camera angle, and it slips, and one of them makes a grab at it, and then it slips and misses, and it's such a beautiful shot. It really reminded me of those scenes you often see in like Frozen Planet and Frozen Planet 2, where you see the wolves hunting like bison. It's really, really like gorgeous shot. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to the rest of the series of Prehistoric Planet. Looks like it's going to be quite a good series. Um, yeah, I'm quite hyped to be honest. They've managed to carry over all the things I really loved from the previous series of Prehistoric Planet. Um, particularly the color scheme of all the dinosaurs. They all look gorgeous, and they often quite look distinct as well. It doesn't look like somebody just pressed copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste on a dinosaur model. So I appreciate that, and things like the Haptigopteryx, when they were displaying to each other, they have that gorgeous color on their, particularly the males, on their bills, which is brilliant and something you could really imagine that real dinosaurs also had. So it feels really like you're back in the past. So I'm really, really hyped for what we're going to see next. I think it's going to be pretty fantastic. And of course, the nice thing is about CGI animal documentaries in general is that they can produce them all so much quicker. Like for example, having like a big BBC wildlife documentary a year. I suppose they do often have them every year, but to have like a sequel documentary series that quickly, like for instance, they'd never have like Planet Earth 1 and then the next year Planet Earth 2 and the next year Planet Earth 3 kind of thing. But obviously being CGI, it's actually much quicker to create new form, like, well, new content basically. So it does mean that, we can get them much quicker. So, I mean, I don't know whether they'll do a third series, but if they did, we could get that next year. So that'd be great. You could really cycle through quite quickly. Um, so yeah, I'm really, really hyped for the rest of this series of Prehistoric Planet. I'm hopefully going to be doing episode by episode reviews, work depending. If not, I might combine a few of them together. But yeah, hopefully it'll be really, really, really good, and as good, I hope, as the previous series, if not better. So yeah, that was the Sherlockian. Thanks for watching till the end. If you've got this far, you can subscribe to the channel below. There's obviously the little box you can click. There's also a link in the description. You can follow me on Twitter. But thanks for watching, and I'll hopefully see you in the next one. Goodbye.